Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee. Today is Sunday, November 24th. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we have a loaded show today. Last week, it was all about Julian Lewis and Bryce Underwood. This weekend, well, Bryce Underwood, we're going to talk some Bryce Underwood again this weekend, but also David Sanders. He makes that visit to Ohio State. What does it mean for Tennessee? We're going to talk about it. We're going to go down to Florida. We're going to go to Texas. We're going to talk Michigan. We got a loaded show today. But first, let's take a look at these On3 recruiting rankings. As you know, signing day is right around the corner. We are just over a week away. Now, Georgia has the number one class in America, followed by Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, and then Auburn in there at 5. LSU, Oregon. Oregon might be my sleeper for National Signing Day to make a run at that number one class. Michigan surging at 8. Tennessee hanging in at 9. Miami 10. Outside the top 10. Texas A&M at 11. USC 12. We got Penn State in there at 15. Then Ole Miss, Missouri, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Nebraska. Nebraska is in there at 20. All right, so the stage is set for a very exciting National Signing Day. Some of these major developments, will they happen by signing day? Will they not? Are these guys going to stick? Are they going to flip? We're going to get into it. Big show today. We got to talk about the biggest developments from the weekend, and it was an insane weekend, not just in college football, but also college football recruiting. It got crazy heading into the weekend. Remember on Thursday, one of the most historic quarterback commitment days that I can remember. We had Julian Lewis committing live on the Pat McAfee show around noon. We all knew that was going to go down, but then Bryce Underwood shocks the recruiting world, shocks the college football world by flipping his commitment from LSU to Michigan on Thursday night. So let's talk about now the biggest developments that happened over the weekend. That was just the week. Let's get into the weekend. All right, starting at the top. Michigan commitment, Bryce Underwood attends a home game. That's right. Michigan commit Bryce Underwood. This is the first Bryce Underwood home game as a Michigan commitment. He hit up the tailgates. I mean, it was crazy to see him decked out in the maize and blue. Here he is at the Hailgate. I believe that's what it's called. One of the biggest Michigan tailgates. And, you know, he looks great. He's having a great time. I'm sure there's a ton of pressure on that young man, but he can handle it. He's a great talent. Last home game of the year, he attends the Michigan home game as a commitment. What a wild turn of events it has been for the Wolverines. You know, Bryce Underwood's on campus. All of a sudden, Javian Hilson's showing up. There's word about Ty Haywood being involved, Jakeem Stewart. We're going to be talking Michigan recruiting up until signing day, all the way through signing day. But, man, what a weekend it was if you're a Michigan fan to see the sight of Bryce Underwood walk into the stadium as a commitment. Long time coming for that Belleville High School standout. All right, let's talk about number one offensive tackle David Sanders making this surprise visit to Ohio State. On3's Pete Nakos broke the news on Saturday morning. I was shocked, so what do? Of course, I run over to VolQuest message boards. I want to see what the great Austin Price has to say, and, you know, thinking that Austin's going to be on there saying nothing to worry about, Tennessee fans. The Josh Heupel knew all about this one. It's just he's just going for a great game. Nope, that's not what Austin Price had to say. He basically said, yeah, there should be some level of concern here. And to me, it seems like this is game on for this David Sanders recruitment. I know that when he committed to Tennessee, he picked the Vols over Ohio State, over Nebraska, over Georgia. But now it seems like Ohio State's right in it. Here's what Steve Wiltfong had to say about Sanders on last night's Recruit Reaction show. It's about 90 seconds. Watch.
David Sanders Jr. pops up inside the shoe. Longtime Tennessee commit. Since committing to the Vols in August, he's been Mr. Vol. He has only visited Tennessee, only talked to Tennessee, but the early signing period is less than 2 weeks away. It starts on December 4th. And we're dotting I's, we're crossing T's, we're having final conversations and talking to several people with knowledge of the recruitment. This visit started to get legs on Wednesday. He is on campus at Ohio State this weekend. He could stay into Monday. So there's going to be a lot of dialogue and a lot of opportunity for Ohio State to make a move on Tennessee, and talking to a source early this morning, they thought that this was even starting to trend Ohio State's way. We'll see how the conversation goes with the Sanders family, Ohio State, but he's having a great time. He's around the Ohio State recruits, got around the coaches. You saw him there with offensive line coach Justin Fry, who he trusts. Look, there were times where I thought Ohio State led for David Sanders. It was obvious that they finished in the top two for him to be back on campus in Columbus. And this is going to be a developing visit. And so we'll be talking about it all weekend into Monday.
So there you see, I mean, Steve, what Tennessee fans, what do you think? Ohio State fans, what do you think? Steve says he's leaving on Monday. I mean, that's essentially an official visit. I know he's already used his official visit, but being on campus for multiple days, I believe he's with some family. I don't know if all of his family's there, but somebody is. And he's going to be leaving on Monday. You guys let me know what you think. Comment section below. All right, Naeem Offord back at Auburn. Again, no, he's not paying rent. No, he doesn't have season tickets, but Naeem Offord has spent a lot of time out on the plains. The 5-star corner is committed to Ohio State, but he's looking around. Oregon, Ohio State, Auburn, I think those are the teams. Yes, those are the teams that he's going to decide from. He told Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live this morning, there's a major development in the Naeem Offord recruitment. I mean, I think Ohio State fans saw this coming, but Naeem Offord has officially said that he will make a quote-unquote final decision between Oregon, Ohio State, and Auburn on National Signing Day. Speaking of huge wins, we got to talk Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks. So let's get into it. This week, we are a big winner. I took Travis Hunter on the more than. I took Dylan Raiola on the more than his passing yards, and bang, we hit this week. So I want to hear from you guys. How was your weekend? Let me know. What are your locks? Give me some NFL picks, whatever they are. Let me know what your locks of the week are. You guys know Prize Picks. It's where you select 2 or more players. You pick more or less on their projected stat line and place your entry. It's real quick. You can do it in about 60 seconds. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy. And, you know, with the quick withdrawals, the easy gameplay, selection of players and stat types, it makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. We're going to use promo code Inside Scoop. And when you play $5, you're guaranteed $50 in your account. That's right. If you play a lineup for $5, win or lose, after that is over, you're going to have $50 in your account. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop to receive $50 once you play 5. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right. Another major development is with another 5-star offensive tackle, Michael Fasusi. Committed to Oklahoma. He was at Texas this weekend. Now he enjoyed the Texas-Kentucky game. The Longhorns, they ran the football. But I got a question. Is this Michael Fasusi visit the same or different than David Sanders? And I tend to believe it's a little bit different. While maybe it feels like Ohio State has a ton of momentum with David Sanders, I'm a little skeptical about Texas. I mean, Michael Fasusi missed a great home game at OU, the team that he's committed to, as they beat Alabama on Saturday. But he was at Texas, and this has kind of been known for a couple weeks now that he's going to visit Texas and Texas A&M the last 2 weeks of the season. Now, I don't know what that means for Oklahoma, but I kind of feel like this one's been out in the open a little bit more than the David Sanders to Ohio State visit. So we'll see what happens with Fasusi. I want to talk with Justin Wells of Inside Texas, kind of get some more details. But you guys, you let me know. What were the biggest developments of the weekend? Did I miss them? Did I hit them all? Let me know. Comment section below. Let's talk some Gator recruiting coming off a big win over Ole Miss, 24-17. The Gators are now 6-5. They knock Ole Miss to 8-3. And as hard as the Gators were to watch at the beginning of the season, they are a fun team to watch at the end, and recruits are taking notice as well. We're going to go behind the scenes with Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. Another crazy recruiting weekend for the Gators. Who saw this coming? But we're going to break it all down. All right, Gator fans, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button. We're talking Florida Gator recruiting here at the On3 Recruits channel. We want you to be a part of it. Jump on board, hit subscribe. All right. Let's bring in Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online. Keith, you guys are doing a heck of a job covering all this action. I want to talk to you first about a couple flip targets on campus. Ty Jackson, USC linebacker commitment from the state of Florida. I was reading Gators Online overnight, Corey Bender saying some good things about him. What are you hearing about where things stand right now with USC commit Ty Jackson?
All right, Josh, we think Florida is trending in the right direction, but to really get your arms around this recruitment, you have to go back to the summer. And at that point, Florida seemed to be the team to beat for Ty Jackson. But then he unofficially visited the Gators for the Miami game in week 1. And Florida not only didn't play well, Josh, at the Swamp that day, but the young linebackers didn't play much. And that was a big deal to Ty because he wanted to know that he would have a chance to play early. And there's nothing better than seeing true freshmen play. Mm-hmm. Well, as the season has gone on, not only have the Gators picked up the pace, they're now 6-5 after a 1-2 start, but the younger linebackers, Miles Graham and Aaron Childs, are starting to play a good bit more. So not only did he then see Florida look good on Saturday at the Swamp in a big win over number 9 Ole Miss, he saw younger players making a big difference, not just DJ Lagway, not just Jaden Ball, the running back, but guys on defense and at linebacker. So I think that's been significant too. Meanwhile, USC hasn't had the season they had hoped for. Florida is playing much better. There's a lot more buzz about the program. And Josh, you know this, when there's more buzz about your program, you know that the NIL coffers are going to have more cash than if there's no buzz about your program. And when you start recruiting the elite guys, you have to factor that into the equation as well. Yeah. So Florida appears to be in a stronger position than it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And they may be able to pull this off. And Ty has always liked Florida. And his family is always like Florida. They like the football elements, Josh, but they also like the academics side of it, including the Gator Made program, which is something that Florida does to kind of get you prepared for life after football. The family has mentioned that to me multiple times, that they like that Gator Made program.
Yeah, and also I think you hit on it. I mean, USC trending in the other direction of the Florida Gators right now. And Ty Jackson probably looking at this thing thinking like, hey, why do I need to travel 3,000 miles away from home when the Gators are hot right now? They're playing their freshmen. My parents can come see me play. So we'll keep an eye on Ty Jackson as this weekend wears on. Now, another one I want to talk about, another major flip target, running back Byron Lewis. Now, he's committed to Florida State, but took an unofficial visit to UF last weekend, liked it so much, he booked an official visit with the Gators this weekend. Byron Lewis, I know he's still on campus on that official visit, but do you think that this is somebody that the Gators could flip from the Florida State Seminoles?
You know, Josh, I think Florida has a real chance with Byron Lewis, and there's a few reasons why. Throughout this cycle, everyone thought that Florida would only take 2 running backs, and I think they were content with having 2 running backs in the class, one being Waltez Clark out of Tampa and the other being Chad Gasper out of Texas. But while Clark has had an outstanding season, Gasper has had some injuries, so he may not be ready to play next season. And if he is, he might not be at full strength. So even though Florida should have some good running backs returning in 2025, they want depth at that position. So the plan then became, hey, if you can get a third back and it's an outstanding back, you take him. And so they've locked in on Byron Lewis. Again, you mentioned that he visited Florida last week for the LSU game, had a great time. He's back this weekend for an official. And we were told going into this visit, it was already up to maybe 50-50. Yeah. And that if he had a good visit, it might be in that 75-25 range in favor of Florida.
How could you not have a good visit at that game?
That's right. He obviously had a great game day experience on Saturday. And also, here's one thing he mentioned after the LSU game. He told me, he said, I like that atmosphere of that SEC game. And so, you know, there's a lot of things working in Florida's favor here. And also, he's 7-on-7 teammates with Florida quarterback commit Tramel Jones, with Florida receiver commit Vernell Brown III. They're all buddies. It seems to be lining up in Florida's favor here. But
yeah,
we got
it definitely seems to be coming together as we kind of hit. We're what, 8-9 days away from National Signing Day. So, Keith, talk to Gator fans right now. I know you guys did a heck of a job. Go to GatorsOnline.com. They have it covered head to toe. But who are some other names coming out of this weekend that maybe Gator fans need to be aware of?
Well, I think one guy you got to watch is Jahari Medlock. He's a 3-star offensive tackle out of Atlanta, but Florida really likes him, and it's hard to find good tackles. And I'll tell you, we've seen him up close, and he has an NFL body. You're talking 6'6" on the north end of 300 pounds, no bad weight. So they're going to have to flip him from Cincinnati, hold off Georgia Tech. I think if you're a Gator fan, you're like, well, why aren't more bigger schools involved? And I don't quite frankly have an answer to that, but Florida likes him a lot. And we think that Florida's got an outstanding chance to flip him. In fact, by the time this runs, there's a chance maybe he's already done it. So Florida in good position with Jahari Medlock. Another guy, Muiz Tancora, is a tall receiver out of Texas that they like. When Florida lost four-star receiver Joshua Moore earlier this fall, who flipped from Florida to Miami, they lost that 6'3", 6'4" target in the class. Right. They needed a big receiver. They found this guy out in Texas, and they like him a lot. And he's on campus this weekend as well. I guess the question is going to be, if you're Florida, you've got two receivers committed. So one, how many total do you want to take? Two, does this win this weekend and that win last weekend, does that open the door with some other guys? Jamie French, five-star targets at Texas this weekend, and he's committed to the Longhorns. They've been trying to work on him. Dallas Wilson's a five-star Oregon receiver commit, was supposed to visit Florida this weekend, but never made it. Are they going to continue to work on those guys? You can still bring them in next weekend, even though Florida is playing up in Tallahassee. Next Sunday is the last day before the dead period. Also, they're working on Quincy Porter, an Ohio State commit from New Jersey. So the question, if you're Florida, is, they could probably get Muiz Tancora right now. They could probably get him in the next few days. But do you hold off? Do you wait and see if you can get a bigger fish out there? It's a dangerous game. It is. It can be.
But the Gators are hot right now, so you can play with fire right now.
Maybe you roll the dice and you say, well, let's wait another 5 or 6 days at least. Of course, there is some danger to that. Tancora, I think, is supposed to visit Boise State. They're having a heck of a season. So Florida seems to be in a good spot at receiver, a favorable spot when you're the one making the decisions.
Yeah. All right. Gator fans, coming out of this weekend, recruiting's heating up. Talk to Keith and I. How are we feeling about some of these flip targets? Byron Lewis, Ty Jackson, Onis Conanbaney was on campus. You guys are covering that over on Gators Online. So Gator fans, just talk to us. Let us know who's flipping to the Florida Gators on signing day. Comment section below. Let's talk some Texas Longhorn recruiting coming off a impressive 31-14 win over Kentucky, and they had five-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi on campus. Can the Horns flip him from Oklahoma? Well, I got Justin Wells from Inside Texas. He's going to go behind the scenes of this important recruitment. But first, Texas fans, do me a favor right now. Smash that subscribe button. We're talking Texas Longhorn recruiting between now and signing day and beyond, so jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Justin Wells. Justin, there's a couple big flip targets on campus. Well, it was also great to see Jamie French and Myron Charles there, but we got to get to offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. The five-star offensive tackle from the state of Texas is committed to the Sooners, but this weekend he was in Austin. What are you hearing coming out of this important visit?
Yeah, so Michael Fasusi is going to take a few trips. He is solid to Oklahoma, and I'm going to continue to kind of preach that. This kid is locked into his Oklahoma commitment. But he does want to see a couple good games. He got to see one on Saturday. I caught up with him as he was coming into the stadium. Him and his father, Ebenezer, wonderful man. This boy is imposing. 6'5", 305 pounds, looks absolutely fantastic. Your franchise left tackle. Oklahoma's cratering, and he's going to do some due diligence just right before National Signing Day, just to make sure. Some of the things that stood out to him, I talked to him on my way home from after covering the game, and he basically lined it out. He's like, look, I thought the Texas offensive line looked incredible. And he even identified the final drive that was 15 consecutive run plays over an 8-minute period that basically, put the nail in the coffin for Kentucky. He elaborated that entire series, and he was impressed how aggressive the play calling was, and just how the O-line kind of meshed together and played really well together. He got to talk to Kenny Baker and Steve Stark, got to sit in on offensive meetings. Not Kenny Baker, I'm sorry, Kyle Flood. I'm thinking Myron Charles in the back of my head because he got to do the same thing. But yeah, Fasusi loved to sit in with those guys. He told me it's always love from this staff. They've been like that for 2.5, almost 3 years in this recruitment. When he picked Oklahoma in the summer, it was down to Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Texas. There was a reason Texas was in that top three. And then he had talked about how he's ready to go to College Station next weekend for the Texas A&M game. Texas fans are going to read that as, well, you get to see Texas again. There's something there. I wouldn't read too much into that. Texas A&M was really, really close in this recruitment as well. They're still close in this recruitment. They're a contender as much as Texas, if not a little bit more. But the Horns have his attention, and if something goes awry with Bill Bedenbaugh or any of the things that are happening in Norman right now, that's where I could see a crack here where you could get in and possibly flip them. But right now, love the Austin trip, love coming back, seeing the players, hanging out with some of the recruits. Some of the recruits got to talk to him. He had mentioned to me. But at the end of the day, I think he's still solid to Oklahoma. Let's see what happens next weekend when Texas and Texas A&M converge on Thunderdome.
Yeah, because he's kind of back at not at Texas, but he's back at a Texas game. So do you get the sense that this is one of those like, hey, I'm going to make a final decision, or are we not there yet with Michael Fasusi?
I honestly think he's in the back of his mind wants to make a final decision. Now he's and again, I do think I think there's a strong chance he remains in this Oklahoma class because honestly, they're going to hire a new OC. That's not going to happen before National Signing Day. And they're dang sure not going to fire Bill Bedenbaugh before or after that in that fashion. And so I think he'll play the odds. Now, if signing day was later, I think this recruitment would be different. I think what happens with the offensive staff at Oklahoma would have an incredible influence on this, but that's not the case. And so I think he's weighing his options. He's doing his due diligence, guys. He just wants to make just like all these other kids, they want to make absolute sure what they're going to do. I think Texas put themselves in an even better spot, but I also know that when I was talking to him on the phone, he was listening to Oklahoma drub Alabama and Norman, which no one called. He was excited about that. He is a young kid that has a couple weeks left before he enrolls early in his future college. He's trying to soak it all up. And I think the Texas A&M game has a chance to make another impression on him. It's going to have to be a big one.
Yeah. All right. So before the game, there was already some big recruiting news. Joseph Mbachu, formerly a Florida Gator commitment. He's from the state of Georgia, announced his commitment to the Texas Longhorns. Big pickup. We've talked about him plenty on this channel with you. But my question is, now, with Myron Charles back on campus as well, tweeting out the little home emoji with the Texas photo, so we assume that Myron Charles is solid for now. But I saw that Nate Marshall, defensive lineman committed to Auburn, was also on campus. Justin, how big of a priority is Nate Marshall? Does Texas have room for him?
Yeah, I don't know how much of a priority, but they definitely have room.
Okay.
They want 4 defensive linemen in this cycle. And watching Marshall's tape, I don't know if he's more D lineman or more big edge. Like he is in person a string bean. He is a very skinny kid. He's got a great frame that can add functional mass.
Right.
He looks fantastic. I think they made an impression on him. Just talking to some of the other recruits in that section, I think that made an impression on him. With Myron Charles, I think he's solid for now, but I also feel like he could end up in Gainesville next weekend. Because Florida is adamant that they want to flip this kid. They want to do it sort of DeAndre Robinson style and keep him home. But the fact that he did go ahead and cancel that last UF visit last weekend and got on the plane and decided, I want to come home. I want to see Kenny Baker, Steve Sarkisian, and this group, I think was big. Not to mention, like you had said, 5-star Jamie French was in the stands. I got to catch up with him before and after the game. Jonah Williams. I hear a holler. I'm on the sideline, and I hear this holler, and it's Jonah Williams up in the stands trying to get down on the field. So we sort of maneuvered it where he could walk through here and walk down here. And I told the lady checking press credentials, I said, look, this is a young man that Jim Slossnagel's right over here. He'd like to come down here because they're real strict on letting people on the field.
Sure.
I said, please don't do this to this kid. This is the number 1 safety in the country. He's a 5-star. Let this kid in. And they did. And so talking to all those guys, that's a good thing for Myron Charles, to be around the like-minded commitments, to be around the guys that are going to buy in. I still think that recruitment's a little bit open. Nate Marshall's the one that we're kind of watching. Right. And I need to check with my Auburn sources today to kind of see where they are because they're coming off a pretty fun win over Texas A&M last night. Yeah. But Marshall, that was the surprise. We weren't expecting him on campus. And we knew Mbachu was committing yesterday. That was all signed, sealed, and delivered, and that thing was ready to go. But Marshall's the new name in there because Texas wants 4 D linemen. If they could sneak 5 in this cycle, they would. But right now, the number's 4.
All right, Texas fans, how are we feeling about the flip of a potential offensive tackle, Michael Fasusi? Talk to us. Let us know. Comment section below. You think Texas gets it done? All right, let's talk David Sanders. The number one offensive tackle in America made a major move over the weekend. I don't think everybody expected it, but Pete Nakos, he broke the news, so we're going to break it all down. But first, guys, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button. There you go, Pete. Good job. Good
Thanks.
job. All right,
I don't have a pen.
Let's get into it. David Sanders committed to Tennessee and has been, well, since the summer, and now less than 2 weeks before signing day, you break some big news on Saturday morning that David Sanders is visiting Ohio State. Obviously, that has come. It has passed. So take us back to Saturday morning, Pete. How did you go behind the scenes of this breaking news story?
I was getting my oil changed and received a phone call from a source that David Sanders was with me on campus at Ohio State. Had the green light to put the news out, and first thing I did, call Steve Wiltfong. Steve and I talked about it real quick. Steve gets it out. We get it out there. And then we talked to some more sources and everything. And Steve learned that he's going to be there until Monday, which is an extensive visit at this point in the recruiting cycle.
Yeah. Let's dig into that. Just the timeline of this. One, we're 9 days before signing day. Two, he's going to be there for a multi-day visit. Normally, when we talk multi-day visit, we're talking official visit. Yep. But David Sanders has already used his official visit. So this is on the family's dime.
Yep.
It shows that it tells me that they didn't just come in for a good game. I know Tennessee fans would probably want to look at this and say, hey, maybe David Sanders just crossing I's, dotting T's. But what are you hearing about this visit?
Yeah, I was specifically told on that phone call that this is not a visit to go see the game of the week or anything. This is a visit that's extremely serious. This is a visit to cross some I's and Q's and all those sorts of things and make sure that he wants to be a Tennessee Volunteer, and if there's any shadow of a doubt, that he goes and checks out another school.
Wow. So Tennessee, do you think Tennessee, a lot of times in recruiting we hear, oh yeah, the coaching staff knew, they said it was fine. I mean, is this a scenario where, because it caught me off guard, it caught you off guard, I think Steve was pretty surprised.
Steve was caught off guard too.
Yeah, by it. Was Tennessee caught off guard by it?
From my understanding, they were. I don't know all the ins and outs if the Sanders family did or didn't give them a heads up. I was told they did, but either way, at this point in the cycle, taking a visit 9 days before National Signing Day, I gave the example of someone on a phone call yesterday. Like, it is not like he's going to see North Carolina play or Duke play, which would have been an in-state school, and just get out and see a game that weekend. It was to Ohio State, which was number 2 in his recruitment. It really came down to Tennessee and Ohio State when he made that announcement in was it July or August. And taking a visit like this has, I mean, obviously people at Tennessee are very well aware of what's going on, but it's definitely something we have to monitor in these next 9 days.
Wow. This is incredible. David Sanders, number 1 offensive tackle in America, on the road as we speak in Columbus. That visit's going to go for another, 12, 24 hours. So we'll see what happens coming out of this. So at the end of the day, what do you think is driving David Sanders to take a late visit to Ohio State?
Josh, I think the two biggest things here are there is an NIL element. He wants to make sure that everything lines up with Tennessee, and going to Ohio State, make sure that he knows where things stand with the Buckeyes. The second thing here, I think that the family overall just wants to make sure he picked the right school, right? The way the Sanders family views this decision, it's a life decision. It is not a one-year decision and then hit the portal. Wherever they pick, they fully intend to be there for the next 3 to 4 years of David Sanders' career.
All right. Well, 8-9 days from National Signing Day, David Sanders, number 1 offensive tackle, is on the road taking a last visit. Tennessee fans, Ohio State fans, let us know what is going to be the result of this David Sanders recruitment. Let us know. Comment section below. Let's talk some Auburn recruiting after that wild overtime finish where the Tigers beat the Aggies on the Plains. And, of course, we're talking flip targets. We're 9 days from National Signing Day, and Auburn's ready to make some noise. I got Jeffrey Lee from Auburn Live on this video, and we're going to break it all down. But first, Auburn fans, this exciting time. Smash that subscribe button. All right, let's bring in Jeffrey Lee from Auburn Live. And Jeffrey, before we get into the big flip targets that were on campus, there was a major official visit taking place, and that's 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. We know he's trending to Georgia. We know Georgia's been the favorite, but here's Auburn getting them on campus 8-9 days before signing day. What are we hearing on defensive lineman Justice Terry?
Well, Auburn trying to make up some ground on Georgia. I don't think there's any doubt Georgia's the team to beat, and I think it's Georgia until it's not. But Auburn was able to get him back on campus, something they had been trying to do for the past month, and it was one thing or another that he couldn't come. And then so to be able to get him back on campus at least gets Auburn's name, maybe even gets a hat on the table.
Right.
But I still think the safe play here for Auburn fans and the rest of the college football fans is it's Georgia until it's not.
Okay. Let's dive into some of these flip targets. 5-star cornerback Naeem Offord back out on the Plains. Offord is committed to Ohio State, but hasn't been to a game. Meanwhile, it's almost like he has season tickets to Auburn. What are we hearing? No, well, we already know. You broke some big news on Naeem Offord. He's going to make a final decision on National Signing Day. Break it down. Who's involved here?
Yeah, I thought that was the most important, intriguing part of his interview, his post-game interview Saturday night, was that, he rushed the field. He had a fantastic time. It was his 4th or 5th Auburn game. But are you going to have a final decision? Are you going to make an announcement? Yes, on signing day. And I thought that was very interesting. Here's a guy who's been committed to Ohio State for a long time, who's going to sit down on signing day, make a final decision. He's supposed to go to Ohio State on Saturday for the Michigan game. We'll see if that happens. But he said, his top three were Ohio State, Auburn, Oregon. So it's either, he's going to stay close to home with Auburn or he's going away to either Ohio State or Oregon.
Yeah. If you follow it from the Ohio State side of things, this entire season, it's been, when's Naeem Offord going to show up in Columbus? And to date this season, he has not. Now, he's scheduled to make a visit there at the end of the week for the Michigan game. Do you think that Naeem Offord will take that visit to Ohio State?
As of now, Josh, yes. That's the information I have right now. Now, ask me again on Thursday, and I might have a different answer.
Yeah.
But he's got playoffs now. They've got he's got Thanksgiving on Thursday. He's got playoff games on Friday night. So there's a lot going. There's a lot working against Ohio State. Not only keeping him, but even getting him back on campus.
Yeah. All right. So that one we're going to watch play out, but we know right now Naeem Offord making a final visit. Obviously, if he doesn't make it to Ohio State at the end of the year, we know this is a 2-team race. We got Oregon, we got Auburn, but let's see what happens. It's the team that he's committed to. He's committed for a reason, so let's just wait and see. All right. Another big-time flip target on campus is running back Usman Kroma, and guess what? There are expert predictions rolling in for him to flip. Your coworker Cole Pinkston put in a pick for Kroma to flip to Auburn. Jeffrey, are you following suit?
Probably. I want to see what he says. He arrived at Auburn Saturday. He spent the night. He spent a lot of time with Auburn commits. He spent a lot of time with Auburn coaches. He saw Jarquez Hunter rush for 130 yards. He's seen Jarquez Hunter. After a slow start to the season, he's seen Jarquez Hunter rush for more than 1,200 yards at this point. So a lot working for Auburn with Kroma. He picked Georgia, and Auburn wasn't far behind at all when he committed to Georgia. As a matter of fact, I think Cole actually had a pick in for Auburn at the time and switched it there late. So, it wasn't like it was a clear-cut Georgia, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Derek Nix has been absolutely instrumental in this. Grant Miller absolutely has been instrumental in staying on Usman Kroma. He's feeling the love. He was back on campus for that A&M game, stormed the field, and then stayed the night and hung out with some recruits. So a lot of things working in Auburn's favor right here, and I'm pretty close, Josh. I'm pretty close. Matter of fact, I'm going to touch base with a couple of sources close to his recruitment and see what they say, and then I'll probably make my decision then.
All right. So Auburn fans, maybe by the time you watch this video, Jeff has already put in a new flip pick for Usman Kroma. There's another flip target on campus that I want to talk about. Now, Tennessee volunteer recruits making visits elsewhere made noise this weekend, namely David Sanders. But one that flew under the radar was defensive lineman commit Darion Smith, who's committed to Tennessee. He was on campus at Auburn. Jeff, what's going on with Smith and Auburn?
trying to get that trifecta from St. Francis Academy in that 2025 class. Auburn has Bryce Diaz committed. They have Blake Woodby committed. They even have Wayne Henry committed in the 2026 class. All three of those guys were in Auburn this weekend, not only for the game, not only for a visit, but to help get Darion Smith to join them at Auburn. A lot of buzz behind the scenes that Auburn likes where they sit. This is Darion's first visit to Auburn. So see what he says afterwards. But I feel probably of all the flip targets, you've got Naeem Alford, Usman Kroma, to an extent, Justice Terry, but Darion Smith, I think he is probably the most likely to flip.
Really? Wow. Okay. So we'll pencil him into the class, not writing with pen just yet because there's still some time left. Now, before we get out of here, I got to talk about Auburn playing a little defense. Deuce Knight, he was back on the Plains. That was a good sign. But Deuce Knight and Ole Miss have been heating up. I won't say it's hot and heavy, but they've been heating up. And then you got edge Jared Smith. He's also been taking some visits, namely South Carolina is the team to watch there. How are you feeling about these two commitments after another visit on Saturday?
Before the weekend of the A&M game, I had Deuce Knight sticking with Auburn at 80%. Still felt pretty confident he was going to stick with Auburn. After that game, after talking with Deuce, and listen, Josh, he's been to 7 of Auburn's 8 home games this year. He never wanted to talk. He never wanted to interview. Politely declined, respectfully declined. He didn't want to talk. No problem. See, hey, have a safe trip home. After this game, he came up with smiles, giddy, almost cheesing, as we used to say back in the 90s. Cheesing. He was excited. He wanted to talk. He wanted to tell how happy he was, how bright the future he thought was at Auburn.
He was recruiting.
With him in it. Yeah, absolutely. So I felt and I asked him, I said, listen, what's next weekend like for you? He said, I'm not going anywhere right now. And he admitted, listen, Ole Miss is pushing for me to come on this visit. They want Deuce Knight at the Egg Bowl. George County lost this past weekend to Picayune in the playoffs, so his season's done. So I personally, I would be more surprised if he didn't visit Ole Miss next weekend than if he did. But even still, he has given a lot of indications to Auburn. He's pretty much done. I've got it from 80% to 95%. There's a 5% chance. He's still obviously he's not saying leave me alone, Ole Miss. I'm done.
Right.
So there's still a crack in the door, crack in the window, if you will, but I really feel confident about Deuce Knight sticking with Auburn. Very, very good. Jared Smith, again, last night, or Saturday night, he was just giddy. He was excited. He was telling the coaches all the right things. He was telling the commits all the right things. Would not be surprised to see him continue to consider South Carolina, Ole Miss to some extent. But again, I feel I'm probably 80% on Jared Smith. I feel good about him after the A&M game. I think Auburn feels good about keeping him after the A&M game. So I really think at this point, I tell you what, Josh, the only guy that I'm really keeping an eye on flipping, and Jared Smith to some extent, but Elijah Melendez, the 4-star linebacker from Kissimmee, Florida, Osceola High School. He was at Auburn against Texas A&M. He was there. And he's been one of the more friendly, talkative recruits, commitments. So when he's on campus, he didn't have much to say after the game. And I don't know if that was just him keeping it close to the vest. He's also considering Oregon. Oregon's making a push for him late. But he's probably the one that I'm most concerned about sticking. Other than him, I feel very, very good about Auburn retaining this class, these 27 commitments they have right now.
Yeah, I feel really good about it too. Auburn fans, talk to us. Do you think that Auburn can finish inside the top 5? I mean, I think looking at some of these flip targets, I think they got a great shot. Let us know what you think. Comment section below.